Welcome to our new podcast, where we explore valuable lessons from Stoic philosophy and apply them to modern life. I'm excited to join you on this journey. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that we've all experienced at some point: anger. Think back to when you last felt angry. Maybe it was this morning, when you were stuck in traffic and late for work. Or maybe it was when someone ignored a promise to you, leaving you feeling betrayed. Anger is a powerful emotion that often appears in our lives. But have you ever wondered, why do we get angry? And what happens when we lose control of it? Stoic philosophy holds that anger is not only a natural reaction but also a dangerous state. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, once called anger a form of temporary insanity. He argued that when we are angry, we lose the ability to think logically, make bad decisions, and often regret it later. But is there a way to overcome it? That is what we will explore together today. First, let me give you a scenario. Imagine you're driving down a busy road. Someone cuts in front of you without signaling. You immediately feel a rush of heat, your heart is racing, your hands are gripping the steering wheel. Do you scream? Honk your horn? Or do you stay calm and keep going? How you react in this situation will say a lot about how you handle anger. And if you're one of those people who screams or honks, don't worry. This is a natural reaction for most people. But the question is, does it actually help? You might feel better for a few seconds, but what happens next? You're still stuck in traffic. Does anger help solve the problem? Or does it just make you more tired and stressed? What Stoic philosophy teaches us is to learn to ask such questions. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, once said, "You have the power not to be offended. If you can control your thoughts, offense cannot hurt you." What does this mean? That all emotions, including anger, come not from what happens outside of us but from how we perceive things. For example, in the above situation, you might think, "He is so inconsiderate and disrespectful." This immediately triggers anger. But if you change your thinking, for example, "He is probably in a hurry because of an emergency," the feeling of anger will be greatly reduced. This is the power of perspective shifting, an important principle in Stoic philosophy. Let me give you another example. Think of a co-worker or boss. One day, they criticize you in front of the whole team for a small mistake you made. How would you feel? Angry? Humiliated? Or maybe you want to fight back immediately. This is a common situation in the workplace, and how we handle it can have a big impact on our relationships and our careers. What does Stoicism advise us to do in this situation? First, pause. Instead of responding immediately, take a few seconds to breathe deeply and ask yourself, how important is this? Can I control how the other person acts, or can I only control my response? When you ask yourself this question, you will realize that getting angry will not change the criticism, but will only make you lose your temper and possibly make the situation worse. See? Anger isn't the problem, it's how we deal with it that really matters. I'm not saying we need to suppress it or pretend we're not angry. That's unrealistic. Instead, we need to learn to manage it and channel it into positive power. Let's go back to you. Have you ever regretted getting angry? Maybe you said something you shouldn't have, hurt someone, or even hurt yourself. If so, don't blame yourself. We all make mistakes. But the important thing is that from now on, we can learn to control our emotions. So, what do you think? The next time you feel angry, what will you do? Will you let it control you, or will you try to apply the lessons from Stoic philosophy that we will explore further? Please share your thoughts with me. I would love to hear your story, and maybe it will inspire others listening to this podcast. Now, get ready to explore more about the nature of anger and how Stoic philosophy can help us overcome it. I believe that with patience and practice, you can turn anger into a teacher instead of an enemy. Join me on this journey. Part 2: The nature of anger. Anger is one of the most powerful and complex emotions we face. It comes on quickly, overwhelms our reason, and often has unintended consequences. But have you ever wondered, why do we get angry? Where does anger come from? And why does Stoic philosophy call it a form of temporary insanity? Start by thinking about the source of anger. Often, we get angry when things don't go as we expected. A broken promise, unfair criticism, or a feeling that someone has violated our rights, all of these trigger anger. But if you think about it, you'll see that anger doesn't come from the event itself, but from how we perceive it. For example, imagine you've just finished an important presentation at work. You've worked for weeks to prepare, but when you get feedback, a colleague gives you scathing feedback that you didn't do a good job. Your first reaction is probably to feel insulted, put down, and angry. But why? Is it because you feel you've been unfairly judged? Or is it because you expected others to recognize your efforts? Stoic philosophy teaches that anger is not a forced response. It is a choice we often make unconsciously. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Men are disturbed not by what happens, but by how they perceive it." This means that the external event itself does not cause anger, it is our thoughts and judgments about the event that are the source. Another example, think about waiting for a meal at a restaurant. You're hungry and expecting your favorite dish to arrive quickly. But 20 minutes pass, then 30, and it still hasn't arrived. You start to feel annoyed, then angry. Why? Is it because the food is slow, or because you expected the service to be quick? If you didn't expect it, would you still be angry? Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, said that anger is a result of unrealistic expectations. When we expect things to go our way, we are easily disappointed and angry when things don't go our way. But if we change our expectations, accepting that things won't always be perfect, our anger will be greatly reduced. Now, think about it. What do you expect from others? Do you expect your loved ones to always understand you? That your friends will always be on time? That your co-workers will always be perfect? These expectations, when not met, can be a source of anger. But instead of blaming others, ask yourself, are my expectations reasonable? And how can I adjust them? There is also a biological aspect to anger. When we feel threatened, our bodies activate a defense response, often called the fight or flight response. Anger is part of this response, providing us with the strength and focus to face the danger. But in modern society, anger is not always necessary. In fact, in many cases it can harm us rather than protect us. Take a common example. You have an argument with your spouse over something trivial, like who's going to do the dishes. In the heat of the moment, you might say hurtful things, or even make a big deal out of it. But then, when the anger has passed, you realize that the original issue wasn't that important. Anger doesn't solve problems, it just makes things worse. Stoic philosophy does not deny that anger is a natural part of human nature. Instead, it encourages us to understand its nature and learn to control it. Seneca once said, "We cannot prevent the wind from blowing, but we can build walls to block it." Similarly, we cannot prevent the feeling of anger from arising, but we can learn to handle it in a way that does no harm. Now, try a little exercise. Next time you feel angry, pause and ask yourself, 1. What is really making me angry? 2. Are my expectations realistic? 3. What good will this anger bring? When you take the time to think, instead of reacting immediately, you will find that your anger gradually dissipates. This is one of the most important lessons of Stoic philosophy. We can control our reactions if we learn to master our thoughts. To conclude this section, I want to remind you that anger is not your enemy. It is a signal, a sign that something needs to be addressed. But if you let it overwhelm you, it can become a destructive force. Stoic philosophy teaches that we can use anger to understand ourselves better, to grow, and to live more wisely. Try applying what we discussed today to your daily life. Observe when you feel angry and ask yourself, can I change my perspective to overcome it? And if you have any stories or lessons to share, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining me, and let's get ready to take the next step in discovering how we can manage anger effectively. Part 3: The consequences of uncontrolled anger. Anger is a natural part of life, but when left unchecked, it can have dire consequences. Anger affects not only our emotions, but it can also take a huge toll on our health, our relationships, and our future. So what are the real consequences of uncontrolled anger? And how can we become more aware of its effects? Let's start with a story. A man was driving on the highway. Another car overtook him and nearly caused an accident. Feeling angry, he accelerated and chased after the other car to teach it a lesson. But in the heat of the moment, he lost control of the car and crashed into the guardrail. As a result, not only was his car badly damaged, but he was also hospitalized with serious injuries. This story clearly illustrates how anger can cloud our judgment, leading to actions we later regret. But it's not just in dangerous situations like these, anger can also silently ruin many other aspects of our lives. First, let's talk about health. When we get angry, our bodies respond by releasing large amounts of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. This increases our heart rate, blood pressure, and blood sugar levels, responses that the body uses to deal with immediate danger. But if anger occurs frequently, the body is left in a state of prolonged stress. As a result, the risk of diseases like high blood pressure, heart disease, and even stroke increases. Have you ever felt exhausted after a bout of anger? That's no coincidence. Anger drains your energy, leaving you physically and mentally exhausted. And if this continues, it can lead to anxiety disorders, insomnia, and depression. Another example, think of your relationship with your family or friends. A word said in anger can hurt a loved one, creating cracks that are difficult to heal. You may have seen or experienced family quarrels that started out as a small issue. But uncontrolled anger turned into a big fight, causing pain to both parties. Stoic philosophy reminds us that, when angry, you have no control over your words and actions, but the consequences will always be yours. Imagine if one day you said something deeply hurtful to someone you love. Could you easily fix it? The answer is usually no. Words spoken in anger often have more destructive power than we think. Anger can have serious consequences for your career, not just your personal relationships. An employee who loses his temper with his boss or co-workers can quickly damage his reputation and his chances of promotion. Imagine a tense meeting where you disagree with your boss's decision and, instead of calmly presenting your point of view, you loudly argue. The result? Not only does it damage your professionalism, but you also risk being seen as untrustworthy. There are many lessons in history about uncontrolled anger leading to serious consequences. One of them is the story of King Xerxes I, who once ordered a war against the sea because a storm destroyed his bridge. He lost thousands of soldiers and resources because of irrational decisions made in anger. However, you don't have to be a king to realize the harmful effects of anger. In our daily lives, we also face situations where anger, if left unchecked, can lead to irreversible mistakes. Ask yourself, the last time you got angry, what was the result? Did you feel better afterward? Or did things get worse? In fact, anger does not solve the problem we are facing. On the contrary, it often makes the situation worse. Think of a father who, because of work pressure, takes out his anger on his child. The father may feel relieved for a moment, but the child will carry that hurt feeling for a long time. Stoic philosophy teaches that we need to be aware of the consequences of anger before it erupts. Seneca once said, "Nothing leads to regret more than anger. It is a destructive emotion, destructive to others and to yourself." To deal with anger, the first thing we need to do is recognize it as it starts. Instead of letting the emotion take over, pause and ask yourself, is this really worth getting angry about? And what will be the consequences? One exercise you can try is to keep a record of the times you get angry for a week. Write down the reason you are angry, your reaction, the aftermath. Looking back, you will realize that most of the reasons you were angry were not really worth worrying about. This will help you learn to be calmer in the future. Remember, anger is not a strength, it is a weakness if you don't control it. True strength lies in the ability to stay calm and in control of your emotions. If you have any stories or experiences about how anger has affected your life, please share them with me. I hope that sharing them will not only help you to reflect on yourself, but also inspire others. Thank you for listening, and always remember, you have the power to choose how you respond to every situation in life. Part 4. How to manage anger the Stoic way. Anger is not an emotion we can ever completely eliminate, but Stoic philosophy teaches that we can learn to manage and control it. Philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius have left behind profound principles to help us deal with anger without letting it overwhelm us. Let's explore how we can apply Stoic lessons to anger management through practical and clear steps. Understand the source of anger. First, consider, why are you angry? According to the Stoics, anger comes not from events, but from how we interpret them. Epictetus once said, "It is not the event that makes you angry, but your judgment of the event." For example, imagine that someone cuts you off while driving. Your first reaction might be to feel offended that the other person is deliberately trying to interrupt you. But if you reframe the situation, say, thinking that they might be in a hurry because of an emergency, your anger will dissipate. Stoic philosophy advises that, before reacting, take a few seconds to ask yourself, does this really matter? Does my anger help? Stop and control the reaction. Seneca once emphasized, the first thing to control anger is to stop. When you feel angry, do a little exercise, take a deep breath and count from 1 to 10. This helps you create a distance between your emotions and actions, giving you time to think more clearly. Try this example, when you're arguing with friends or family, instead of responding immediately when anger flares, stop, take a deep breath, and think, will what I'm about to say hurt the other person? Will it solve the problem? You'd be surprised to find that, with just a few seconds of calm, you can redirect an impulsive reaction to a constructive dialogue. Accept reality. The Stoics taught that anger often comes from our resistance to reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you are upset by the actions of others, remember that such is their nature. Your anger will not change them." A real-life example is when you are faced with someone who is always late. You may feel angry, but instead of getting upset, think, this is their nature, and I can't change that. Stoicism advises that instead of demanding perfection from the world or other people, focus on changing how you respond to them. When you accept that things don't always go your way, you'll find more peace. Changing expectations. Anger often stems from unmet expectations. We expect others to be polite, to understand us, or to do exactly what we want. But Stoics emphasize that the world does not operate on our expectations. For example, if you expect a coworker to always deliver on time and that doesn't happen, you'll feel angry. But if you accept that sometimes people aren't going to be perfect, you'll be less frustrated and it'll be easier to stay calm. Epictetus teaches, if you don't want to be disappointed, adjust your expectations to reality. Anger is not an emotion we can ever completely eliminate, but Stoic philosophy teaches that we can learn to manage and control it. Philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius have left behind profound principles to help us deal with anger without letting it overwhelm us. Let's explore how we can apply Stoic lessons to anger management through practical and clear steps. Underscore 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 underscore. Understand the source of anger. First, consider, why are you angry? According to the Stoics, anger comes not from events, but from how we interpret them. Epictetus once said, "It is not the event that makes you angry, but your judgment of the event." For example, imagine that someone cuts you off while driving. Your first reaction might be to feel offended that the other person is deliberately trying to interrupt you. But if you reframe the situation, say, thinking that they might be in a hurry because of an emergency, your anger will dissipate. Stoic philosophy advises that, before reacting, take a few seconds to ask yourself, does this really matter? Does my anger help? underscore 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 underscore. Stop and control the reaction. Seneca once emphasized the first T. Hing to control anger is to stop. When you feel angry, do a little exercise, take a deep breath and count from 1 to 10. This helps you create a distance between your emotions and actions, giving you time to think more clearly. Try this example: when you're arguing with friends or family, instead of responding immediately when anger flares, stop, take a deep breath, and think, will what I'm about to say hurt the other person? Will it solve the problem? You'd be surprised to find that, with just a few seconds of calm, you can redirect an impulsive reaction to a constructive dialogue. Underscore 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 underscore. Accept reality. The Stoics taught that anger often comes from our resistance to reality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you are upset by the actions of others, remember that such is their nature. Your anger will not change them." A real-life example is when you are faced with someone who is always late. You may feel angry, but instead of getting upset, think, this is their nature, and I can't change that. Stoicism advises that instead of demanding perfection from the world or other people, focus on changing how you respond to them. When you accept that things don't always go your way, you'll find more peace. Changing expectations. Anger often stems from unmet expectations. We expect others to be polite, to understand us, or to do exactly what we want. But Stoics emphasize that the world does not operate on our expectations. For example, if you expect a coworker to always deliver on time and that doesn't happen, you'll feel angry. But if you accept that sometimes people aren't going to be perfect, you'll be less frustrated and it'll be easier to stay calm. Epictetus teaches, if you don't want to be disappointed, adjust your expectations to reality. Wondering what good anger does? One of the most important lessons from Stoicism is to ask yourself, what good will this anger do? Seneca says, anger never gets you what you want, it only makes things worse. For example, think about a time when you got angry at work and yelled at a coworker. What was the result? Was the problem resolved, or did your relationship with that person become more strained? Anger is often not the answer. Instead, try to use reason to handle the situation. When you are calm, you can explain your point of view more clearly and effectively. Practice tolerance. Stoicism encourages us to practice tolerance, not only toward others, but also toward ourselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Human beings are imperfect creatures. We must learn to accept each other's faults." Think of a friend who has made you angry. Instead of holding on to resentment, try to put yourself in their shoes. They may be going through a difficult time or feeling stressed too. Forgiveness will not only help you feel less angry, but it will also improve your relationships with others. A little exercise: whenever someone upsets you, think of 3 good things that person has done in the past. This will help you keep a more balanced perspective. Record progress. Anger management is a journey, not something you can do overnight. So take note of the small improvements you make. Each time you control your anger, congratulate yourself. Try keeping a daily journal and note down times when you felt angry but managed to stay calm. This will not only help you see progress, but also motivate you to keep practicing. Anger, if left unchecked, can destroy our health, our relationships, and our careers. But if we learn to manage it, anger can become an opportunity to understand ourselves better and live more wisely. Apply Stoic principles to your daily life. The next time you feel anger rising, pause, think, and choose to respond rationally rather than emotionally. If you have any stories or experiences you would like to share about how you manage anger, please leave a comment or contact me. I would love to hear from you and learn more about this journey together. Anger, as we have learned, is not an enemy, but an opportunity to develop wisdom and character. Stoic philosophy shows us the way to manage this emotion, understand the cause, accept reality, change your perspective, and act calmly and rationally. Each step on this journey will not only help you control your anger, but also enrich your mind and soul. Remember, mastering anger is mastering yourself. Don't let it control you and lead you astray. When you're faced with anger, take a deep breath, step back, and ask yourself, is this really worth losing my peace? If you find this information helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. This is not only a place where we learn about Stoicism together, but also a space to explore ways to live more deeply, peacefully, and wisely. Thanks for joining us and listening. See you in the next podcast. And don't forget, let Stoic philosophy guide you to a more meaningful life.